Hello everyone, welcome to the KZGN News. Today we'll bring you a remembrance of the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Governor Brown pushes new ballot measure to get early release of felons from prison. Presidential debate news, an update on California's new bullet train, today's KZGN Talking Points editorial, weather, sports, and much more.
From the Rademacher Hills to Bee Mountain and the mighty Sierras, Ridgecrest to Inyokern and China Lake, this is your news for the Indian Wells Valley with the KZGN News Crew.
Hello, I'm Tom Whitney. Thanks for joining us for the news affecting Ridgecrest and the Indian Wells Valley. Today marks the 30th anniversary of the Space Shuttle Challenger's disaster. It was 30 years ago today that the Shuttle Challenger blew up during launch 73 seconds after takeoff. On it was killed the first woman civilian, a schoolteacher, Krista McAuliffe. We remember the whole crew comprised of teacher and space payload specialist Sharon Krista McAuliffe, payload specialist Gregory Jarvis, and astronauts Judith Resnick, mission specialist, Francis Dick Scobie, mission commander Ronald McNair, mission specialist Mike Smith, pilot Ellison Onizuka, and a mission specialist.
Here comes the flight crew now. Commander Dick Scobie, followed by mission specialist Judy Resnick, Ron McNair, pilot Mike Smith, followed by Krista McAuliffe, teacher in space, Ellison Onizuka, and payload specialist Greg Jarvis.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. We have main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
Flight Fido.
Go ahead.
RSO reports vehicle exploded.
Okay, everybody, stay off the telephones. Make sure you maintain all your data. Start pulling it together.
Today is a day for mourning and remembering. Nancy and I are pained to the core by the tragedy of the Shuttle Challenger. We know we share this pain with all of the people of our country. This is truly a national loss. The Challenger 7 were aware of the dangers, but overcame them and did their jobs brilliantly. They had a hunger to explore the universe and discover its truths. They wished to serve, and they did. They served all of us. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye.
The fall of the crash was determined to be a leaking O-ring on the main engines. We remember the loss today. Governor Brown has a ballot measure he wants to submit to the voters of California. This measure would reduce the state's prison population by new release terms for felons and have fewer juveniles tried as adults. The measure would also increase sentencing credits for inmates that complete rehabilitation programs. The proposal would also allow nonviolent felons to seek parole quicker than current rules. And the proposal would require judges to determine whether juveniles should be charged as adults instead of the prosecutors. If approved, the measure would immediately make 7,000 felons eligible for parole. The governor has $24 million in his campaign fund, so since he is termed out in 2018, he plans on using those funds to push the ballot measure. Well, the Ridgecrest Median Art Committee gave final approval for 2 more pieces of petroglyph art to be placed on North China Lake Boulevard. The first 2 pieces should be installed sometime in February. Previously approved pieces are the Cats and Kittens by Burford and Spirits by Skip Gorman. The pieces approved are from the Friends of the Library, and Olaf Dowd is creating one sponsored by the Bell Estate. So this covers the first 4 pieces. City Community Development Director Matthew Alexander said there are still 5 more locations that need sponsors. If interested, you can contact him at City Hall at 760-499-5000. Well, tonight's the night for the next Republican debate. The big question, will Trump show or not? My guess is he will not show. He has set up a fundraiser rally for the Wounded Warrior Project at Duke University to run the same time as the debate. Pundits spent all day discussing the situation. Most lean that Fox should not give in to Trump and take Kelly off the moderator panel. But in the same breath, they support Trump for standing up to the network. So the reviews are mixed. Trump supporters are also split on whether he should show or not. He is being admired for his capability to stand up to the media, and in the same reference, they would still like to see him debate. But pundits are still amazed at Trump's capability to continue to break all campaign rules and still keep gathering new support. So most believe this won't hurt Trump nor help him. So it's just about time for the debate. Then we'll know. It will be interesting how the remaining candidates on the stage attack Trump when he's not there to respond to them. This could be a defining moment in the character of the other candidates and how they treat Trump in his absence. But even with all this turmoil, the NBC polls coming out this morning still show Trump leading in Iowa. The numbers are Trump 32, Cruz 25, and Rubio at 18. They also show Democrat Clinton at 48 and Sanders at 45 and O'Malley at 3. The New Hampshire polls show Trump at 31 and Cruz at 12, Kasich and Rubio at 11. They also show Democrat Sanders leading with 57, Clinton at 38, and O'Malley at 2. The South Carolina polls show Trump 36 and Cruz at 20 and Rubio at 14. They also show Democrat Clinton leading with 64 and Sanders at 27 and O'Malley at 2. Trump picked up 3 endorsements this week: Jerry Falwell Jr., Rudy Giuliani, and Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona. Now, an update on the new bullet train in California. The AP is reporting that the chairman of the board that oversees California's high-speed rail project said Wednesday that the next projection will likely lower the cost of building the train route from the current $68 billion. But he is less confident about the current predictions for how quickly the system can be built. Board Chairman Dan Richard and other officials were called to testify at an assembly hearing examining the project's costs and projections and other concerns raised by lawmakers. There are a range of uncertainties here, so I can't look you in the eye and tell you it will be $68 billion. I will tell you this: when you see our new business plan, the number is going to be less than $68 billion. I'm more confident about the dollars, sir, than about the time. It may take us a little longer to do this than we said, Richards said. The 2014 business plan said the first 520-mile phase linking the San Francisco Bay Area to Greater Los Angeles would be finished in 2028. But construction has been beset by delays in acquiring land needed for the first segment in the Central Valley and by slow-going environmental approvals. The head of an independent review group tasked with overseeing the rail agency's planning said even though it considers California's projections state-of-the-art, no one really knows how much the rail system will end up costing. No one should tell you now that the number is going to be 67, 43, or anything like that. Nobody knows, said Lewis Thompson, chairman of the California High-Speed Rail Peer Review Group. There is a range of variation, and we have to understand that that's what we're working with. He urged lawmakers to consider funding for a permanent legislative high-speed rail oversight body. The legislature approved the first long-term funding source for high-speed rail in the 2014-15 budget, giving it a quarter of funds from fees charged to polluters. Now, are you ready for this little problem? CEO Jeff Morales and Richards said Wednesday that officials have not selected a route yet to the south, meaning it could go from the Central Valley to San Francisco Bay Area before it heads south. That could be a faster way to get trains operating, as the process of tunneling through the Tehachapi Mountains will require complicated, expensive engineering. Now stay with us for news about the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation after the break. Thanks for staying with us. Well, coming real soon now is the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation dinner. This is a fun evening of guns and entertainment for the benefit of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. This year's annual dinner is Saturday, January 30th, 5 p.m. at the Kerr McGee Center. This is your last chance to get your tickets. If you want to attend this event, purchase your tickets now. Contact Gavin Swanson at 760-589-4537 or email him at rc.rmef.tickets@gmail.com. Now it's time for the 114th News Talking Points editorial. Here's today's topic. Whatever happened to the old adage, If you do the crime, then you have to do the time. Well, that's the theory I was taught as a child. My parents told me that. School teachers told me that. The church taught that. If you do the crime, then you have to do the time. And you know what else? It used to be shameful to break the law. Families emphasized that you should never tarnish the name of your father and grandfather. Breaking the law was tantamount to damaging the good name of your heritage, and that was not to be done. Now what do we see? Politicians feeling guilty that some people break the law, actually have to go to prison. Politicians feel that most of the time it's not the criminal's fault that they broke the law, it's society's fault. They just couldn't help it. When people riot now, the politicians just let them loot and burn whatever. And even after all the videos showing these people doing all this mayhem, rarely is anyone arrested for it. Why is that? Last time I checked, it was against the law to break into stores and steal their merchandise. It was against the law to burn buildings and police cars. Or has someone decided that it's okay to break the law under certain circumstances? Who has that authority? Who has the authority to not enforce certain laws? Last time I checked, the police are supposed to enforce the laws as written, equally and fairly without prejudice. The courts then are to decide on a person's guilt or innocence. Since when can a mayor or some other politician decide to turn a blind eye to people breaking laws? If there's no consequences for breaking the law, then what's to stop people from doing it over and over again? And now, there is a huge effort to lower prison sentences. Some feel that some sentences are too harsh and are arbitrarily shortening sentences. Because the prisons are overcrowded, prisoners can get early releases. Then they come back into their communities to do more mayhem. Then go back to prison again. Oh, but here's the clincher. The politicians are all up in arms because more minorities are in prison than whites. Well, how does that happen? Could it have something to do with if you break the law, then you go to jail? How about this philosophy? If you don't break the law, then you don't have to go to jail. Okay, now the liberals will come in with this story. More minorities go to jail than whites because most of them cannot afford good legal counsel, like white folks do. Well, to that argument I offer this. Have you ever sat in a courtroom and watched the ongoings that go on? The parade of people charged with crimes, then public defenders assigned to represent those that cannot afford an attorney? Well, I've seen it, and I've seen minorities and whites get court-appointed attorneys to defend them when whites couldn't afford an attorney either. Then some will say there are cities like Baltimore that has more minorities being arrested than whites. Well, if the city is made up of 80% minorities, then what would you expect to see? But even with that argument, it has to go back to the old adage. If you do the crime, then you have to do the time. It's no one else's fault but yours, not my fault or society's fault. It's the criminal's fault. And then we get this report. Governor Brown has a ballot measure he wants to submit to the voters of California. This measure would reduce the state's prison population with new release terms for felons and have fewer juveniles tried as adults. The measure would increase sentencing credits for inmates that complete rehabilitation programs. The proposal would also allow nonviolent felons to seek parole quicker than current rules. Again, this is another political solution to coddle people that break the law. If the sentences are too severe for the crime, then change the law. Why are the politicians always trying to just shorten the sentencing? Do it right. Have the legislatures, which are empowered to write laws, change the laws. Mayors, governors, and presidents should not be rewriting laws. Politicians should present their proposals to the legislatures and let them decide. However, I do not mean this as an editorial to get rid of the initiative process. I'm a strong believer in this process. This is truly government by the people. But what I'm concerned about is a governor with $24 million available to support this crime sentencing reduction philosophy. Who will have the funds necessary to fight this measure? Stanford law professor Joan Petersilia said about 20,000 of the state's 127,000 inmates currently serving time for drug or property crimes are the most likely candidates for release under this measure. Politicians continue to feel sorry for these criminals. Well, how about feeling sorry for the victims of these criminals? The ones that had their houses broken into, cars stolen, broken families due to drug abuse. school kids affected by parents that are not sober to properly raise them. Then many kids ultimately follow in their parents' footsteps. And again, let's not forget the victims of these crimes. They have rights too. They have the right to peaceful enjoyment of their lives, their home, and property without fear of criminals. In conclusion, if you do the crime, then be ready to do the time. It doesn't matter your race, religion, or any other classifying criteria. You made the choice to break the law, so suffer the consequences. Hopefully when you get out, you've learned, don't break the law. I'm Tom Whitnick, and that's what I think. I'd like to know what you think. If you have any comments about this editorial, or would like to discuss or recommend a topic, I'd like to hear from you. Please email them to info@kzgn.net. Now stay with us for weather and sports when we come back. Thanks for staying with us. Now here's Lane with the weather.
Thank you, Tom. From the National Weather Service, a stationary front will keep the threat of heavy rain and thunderstorms in place for South Florida. Meanwhile, a couple frontal systems will bring heavy elevation snow and rain to northern California and the Pacific Northwest into Friday. Snow is likely across the Great Lakes region. Temperatures across the nation: Carolinas at 48, Georgia at 52, Arkansas at 62, Northern Texas at 64, Arizona at 64, and Los Angeles at 66. And for us locally, tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 39, west wind 5 miles per hour. Friday, mostly sunny with a high near 67, west-southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Friday night, partly cloudy with a low around 47, southwest wind 5 to 10 miles per hour. Saturday, a 20% chance of rain, mostly sunny with a high near 64, west wind 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 35. Saturday night, a 60% chance of rain, mostly cloudy with a low around 41, southwest wind 10 to 20 miles per hour. Sunday, a 60% chance of rain, mostly cloudy with a high near 54, west-southwest wind 5 miles per hour. Sunday night, a 50% chance of showers, mostly cloudy with a low around 33, west-northwest wind 15 to 20 miles per hour with gusts as high as 25. And Monday, mostly sunny with a high near 52, north-northwest wind 10 miles per hour with gusts as high as 15. And that is your forecast for the IWV. Now back to Tom.
Thanks, Lane. And now here's Tom Heck with sports.
And a very pleasant early Thursday evening to everyone. Let's talk about NBA right now. Golden State wins again. They've only lost 4 games all season. They beat Dallas last night. Dallas didn't have Dirk Nowitzki. He took the night off. He was fatigued. The Cavaliers beat the Suns. Boy, the Suns have just set, so to say. They have really fallen apart. The Pistons over the 76ers. 76ers playing a lot better right now. The Sixers actually have won 2 of their last 4 games. Boston beats Denver. The Spurs win again. They beat the Rockets. Spurs haven't lost a home game since probably Betty Crocker put her cookbook out. And the Clippers, a big road win against Atlanta. They win 95-93 without Blake Griffin, who was in the doghouse, by the way. Got into a fight on Sunday with the team's equipment man. Broke his hand. He's going to be out another probably 5, maybe 6 weeks. He's already been out with that partial torn quad. All right, let's talk about college basketball last night. Colorado beat Stanford. Stanford, a good team, but still struggling on the road. That game in Boulder. Ole Miss beats Auburn. Marquette over Stetson. And these are some of the top 25 teams. Butler over DePaul. Houston beats Tulsa. Georgia Tech and Clemson also get a win. Purdue beats Wisconsin. Number 22, Wichita State beats Loyola of Chicago. Okay, Eli Manning and Russell Wilson have been picked as the starting quarterbacks in the Pro Bowl. Manning, who plays for the Giants, and Wilson, who plays for Seattle, the Pro Bowl this weekend in Hawaii. It used to be after the Super Bowl, but now they've changed it. It's a week before the Super Bowl. In Australia, in Melbourne, Australian Open, Serena Williams wins again. She'll be in the championship on Saturday. NHL note, LA 3, the Avalanche 2, Kings have won now 2 straight. The Predators and the Flames also get wins in the NHL. Local basketball last night, Hesperia 52, Burroughs 23. The JV boys did win from Burroughs, though. And then in girls basketball over at Hesperia, Burroughs 57 and Hesperia 30. The Burroughs JV girls also got a win. Today up at Saracoso, it'll be St. Anne's School and Charter School playing along with Trona and South Fork in junior high basketball. That's your sports for this early Thursday evening. I'm Tom Heck for KZGN.
So that's the news for today. All of us at KZGN-TV know you have a choice in what you watch for your news. We all thank you for choosing KZGN-TV, Ridgecrest's only locally owned community TV station. Now stay tuned for Ridgecrest Talk coming up next.